On This Week in Enterprise Tech, Cheebert's going to give us an update on WiSPA Palooza, plus Mozilla saying ISPs lied to Congress to spread confusion about encrypted DNS. We'll get into that. Plus, we have a great guest. Cheebert and I talk with President and Chief Product Officer at Qualys, Sumedh Thakar, about asset management and digital transformation. Twiat on the set.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is Twiat, This Week in Enterprise Tech, episode 367, recorded November 8th, 2019. Wild hyenas take an inventory. This episode of This Week in Enterprise Tech is brought to you by Brave. Brave is the browser reimagined. Switch now to get unmatched speed and privacy and stop trackers from following you. Save battery life and earn rewards by opting into privacy-respecting ads. Brave is free and easy to switch to. Go to brave.com/twit and switch to Brave today. And by Beacon by EchoSec. Beacon is the fastest way to discover critical data online. This web-based platform gathers millions of posts from dark websites, pay sites, and discussion forums, allowing you to detect threats to your organization quickly. Book a demo today and claim a 10% discount by visiting echosec.net/enterprise. And by Ring Central. With Ring Central, you'll get everything you need in one place for your business communication needs. Sign up for a free demo or request a quote today at ringcentral.com/enterprise. Welcome to Twiat, This Week in Enterprise Tech, the show that is dedicated to you, the enterprise professional, the IT pro, and that geek who just wants to know how this world is connected. I'm your host, Louis Maresca, your guide through this big, giant world of the enterprise, but I definitely can't guide you by myself. I need to bring in the professionals, the experts in their field, starting with our very own Mr. Brian Chee, the geek in paradise, and also the director of Advanced Network Computing Laboratory in Honolulu. Cheebert, what's cooking up down there in Honolulu?
It's all fun and games. You have a little bit of interesting weather coming in, but that's right. It's living in Hawaii. But I do want to send a shout out to Lisa and Leo, who are enjoying Petra. Lisa just posted some pictures of a really, really cute donkey in front of the entrance to the Petra temple. And I'm really, really jealous.
Yeah, I can't help but envy their travels for sure. Thanks, Cheebert. Well, Cheebert, we are the dynamic duo today. We have to shout out to Curtis. He's fighting the crowds at Ignite and Maker Faire Orlando. Plus, we wish Heather well as well. She's getting better this week. And we wish Brian McHenry safe travels. But the show must go on because, folks, we have a jam-packed show for you today. Cheebert is going to give us an update on WiSPA Palooza. Plus, Mozilla is saying ISPs lied to Congress to spread confusion about encrypted DNS. We'll get into that. And we have a great guest, President and Chief Product Officer of Qualys, Sumedh Thakar. He's going to talk about asset management and digital transformation. But before we get into all that goodness, there's been some really interesting blips in this week's news. So let's go ahead and jump into those. Now, the misuse of social networking data has really been a fear of a lot of people globally. Now, horrible companies like 643, they make that app called Hyenas or whatever, which finds photos of Facebook friends in swimsuits actually put it into a gallery, which kind of drives the fears here, right? Because these types of apps, people don't like them using your data or misusing your data. Now, in fact, the misuse of data and APIs from Facebook is one of the reasons why the company shut down some of their third-party API access during their big third-party developer purge back in 2015 and 2015. Now, the memory of Hyenas might have faded away, but the company's founder, Ted Kramer, decided to sue Facebook back in 2015, alleging that its behavior and had been anti-competitive. Now, 4 years later, the lawsuit endures, and it's might be one of the stranger cases in the history of Silicon Valley. Now, the app at the heart of it looks less sympathetic with each passing year, but its chief contention is that Facebook has used its stranglehold on personal information to harm competition. It's very much in vogue. Now, what brings this back to the news is a recent cache of leaked Facebook documents showing how the company's CEO, Mark Zuckerberg, oversaw plans to consolidate the social network's power and control competitors by treating its users' data as a bargaining chip. Now, there's 7,000 pages of documents produced that show discovery of these facts. Now, Facebook once granted very broad permissions to developers, which actually helped to promote their company's interests and spur growth in their platform. And then it horse traded with some of those developers when it suited its needs, and it ratcheted developer permissions down over time as the company achieved a dominant position, and then there was scrutiny over its data practices increased. Now, they call this the switcheroo plan, and it turned out to be an idea where Facebook executives would deprecate various APIs that its developers' partners depended on for fear that those developers would one day compete with Facebook directly, while publicly announcing that the changes were intended to promote quote-unquote privacy. Now, they get people to basically invest in the platform and then bait and switch them, only to turn it on them and use it as a way to get them to invest more. Now, what does this show? Well, fear of competition, of course. Now, the use of data and privacy is not a bargaining chip. All I can say here is, are you surprised?
Well, speaking of privacy, the representatives Anna Eshoo and Zoe Lofgren, both Democrats from California, have introduced the Online Privacy Act the other day. The act would create a new federal agency, the Digital Privacy Agency, to enforce citizen privacy rights. The act would also authorize the agency to hire up to 1,600 employees. Their quote was, "Every American is vulnerable to privacy violations with few tools to defend themselves. Too often, our private information online is stolen, abused, used for profit, or grossly mishandled," according to Representative Eshoo. Well, our legislation ensures that every American has control over their own data. Companies are held accountable, and the government provides tough but fair oversight. My personal spin on this is that it's about time, but I have my fingers crossed that this doesn't turn into yet another pork barrel agency that's set up by Congress to get their cronies their high 3 years for a cushy federal retirement plan. The reality is that this is a watered-down, tiny portion of what Europeans have under GDPR. So while this agency seeks to safeguard our good names, what about our finances? Is this too little? I don't know. I'm thinking I'm going to watch this legislation very carefully.
Now, however, conversion kits for your vehicle have always been part of the dream of the future, right? At least for Marty McFly it was. But what if I told you there will soon be autonomous vehicle conversion kits coming to a city near you? Well, a new startup called Ghost Locomotion, which emerged this week from a stealth with actually $63.7 million in investment from Founders Fund, Coastal Ventures, and Sutter Hill Ventures, is actually targeting your vehicle. Now, Ghost is developing a kit that will allow privately owned passenger vehicles to drive autonomously on highways. Now, there's the key there, highways. And the company says it will deliver it by 2020. Now, a price has not been set, but the company says it will be less than Tesla's charges for its autopilot package that includes full self-driving or FSD. Now, FSD currently costs around $7,000, so this kit isn't going to give a vehicle superior advanced driving assistance, but the kit will let human drivers hand control of their vehicle over to a computer, allowing them to do other activities such as look at their phone or even doze off. Oof. Sounds a little scary there. Now, there are other competitors in the market that also are trying to do this work, like Comma AI, but Ghost feels they have a different approach to this. They want to first solve the problem of vehicles driving on freeways and highways, not just on local roads like some of the other competitors. Now, automakers have continued to make progress in advanced driver assistance systems. Now, the more advanced versions of these systems provide the SAE describes as level 2 automation, which means they have two primary control functions that are automated. Now, Tesla's autopilot system is a good example of this tech. Now, Ghost wants to take the human out of the loop when they're driving on highways. Now, the kit involves hardware-like sensors and a computer that's installed in the trunk and connected to the controller area network, or the CAN of the vehicle. The CAN is essentially the bus, and it's the nervous system of the car, and it allows various parts of the commute to communicate together. Now, Ghost's entire approach is based on an axiom that the human driver is fundamentally correct. It begins by collecting a mass amounts of video data with kits that are installed in the cars of high mileage drivers. Now, Ghost then uses the models to figure out what's going on in the scene and combines that with other data, including the person is driving, by measuring and the actions that they take. Now, this is a different way of thinking about the problem. Now, they used actually real-world telemetry data to develop real models of human situations and mechanical approaches to solving problems. Who knows? You might see autonomous conversion kits coming soon to an auto shop near you.
Being a researcher, this one just really caught my attention. The headline is, researchers hack Siri, Alexa, and Google Home by shining lasers at them. Well, I'm not going to bother reading the story because I'm sure you've probably read it. It's been headlines in all kinds of different publications all over the world. The problem is I'd like to shine a bit of light on this fear, uncertainty, and doubt. The concept is actually quite old and relates to how solar sails work, well, in theory. Light physically acts like both particles and waves and has been one of the biggest physics arguments over the last couple of centuries. The thought is that since lasers are collimated light of a narrow frequency range, and that on semiconductor microphones you can modulate the laser to apply minute pressures on the microphone. This is not quite how laser spy microphones work, since those measure the scatter effect on something like glass vibrating from something like a conversation behind a window. So my physics on this topic is just a little weak. I'm reasonably sure that my theory matches at least one train of thought, and I'm fairly sure that we'll be seeing physics papers appear with experimental results to back them up. So, in the meantime, keep your smart devices out of sight from the outside world.
Now, again, it wouldn't be an enterprise week without a leak. Now, this time it's the APT, or the Platinum Advanced Persistent Threat Cyber Attack Group, that's a mouthful, developing a new backdoor with an interesting set of concealing technologies. Now, if you aren't familiar with the APT group, they've been tracked all the way back to the year 2012 as a group that generally targets mostly governments, military, political targets across the APAC region. And to give you more context, they have been linked to novel attack techniques as the abuse of a now deprecated Windows feature called hot patching and a fileless code deployment, as well as stenography to hide PowerShell and exploited code in plain text. Now, a past backdoor connected to platform uses text stenography to actually hide a command and control communication. Now, the APT appears to have added a new backdoor dubbed Titanium to its arsenal. Now, named after a password to one of its archives, Titanium hides at every step by mimicking common software, including protection-related sound driver software and video creation tools, according to researchers. Now, each example found involved the use of an exploit for executing code at a system level and a shell code to download an additional downloader. Now, Platinum targets then the win login.exe. Now, this password-protected encrypted archive is downloaded via Bits Downloader, and its main task is to install a common Windows task to maintain persistence. Now, the attack chain will then involve the launch of a further archive containing an installer, a common object DLL, and the Titanium backdoor itself. Now, the Titanium's paths all masquerade as common software installers, such as for a DVD creation software or as an audio driver, and the backdoor will then seek a connection to its C2 once it's executed. Unfortunately, none of the files in the file system can be detected as malicious due to the use of encryption and fileless technologies. Now, this is going to make it hard for detection going forward. Now, what does this mean? Well, this means that some of your other software and services on your network already there will need to assist in detecting unusual activity in order to detect this type of exploit. Now, luckily, there aren't any evidence of active campaigns out there using these techniques, so hopefully manufacturers can provide and catch up in time to prevent any outbreaks from happening. Well, folks, that does it for the blips. Next up, the bites. But before we get to there, we have to thank a really great sponsor of This Week in Enterprise Tech, and that is Brave. Now, the majority of things you do today includes surfing the web, right? Your users do it, you do it, your organization does it. There aren't many options out there today for browsers that focus on security, privacy, and performance. That's why you need to check out Brave. Now, Brave is a next-generation web browser built by the team that's focused on privacy and performance. Think about that. Usually those two attributes actually don't go together, right? Privacy and performance, well, they do with Brave. Now, they are pioneering a better internet with privacy by default. But Brave actually gives you control over who has access to your online activity. You get really unmatched speed, security, and privacy, including shields that block data, grabbing ads, and trackers. It's really fast, and it actually can perform almost up to 8 times faster than competitors. It can actually save battery life and reduce data costs. Now you'll want to you all want to stop trackers, right, and creepy ads from allowing to access your data across the web. Well, Brave can do it. Now Brave is unlike any other browser, and then it gives you speed, online privacy that blocks trackers, and a great user experience. And guess what? It's free. And they know that your data is important, which is why they make sure your data stays private to you. Now, why should you pick Brave over the other browsers? Well, it's easy because users can switch browsers and get set up really quick. And in fact, it saves battery life. And it feels just like using Chrome, but without all being tracked at all, right? You can import your bookmarks with one click, and all of your favorite Chrome extensions are available and usable. In fact, it's available for Mac, Windows, Linux, Android, iOS, and it supports up to 56 languages worldwide. Now, Brave rewards you actually by having advertisers pay you for your attention. Now, you can actually opt in to Brave ads, and you'll get rewarded with what they call BAT tokens. Now, these are basic attention tokens. Now, this actually supports content creators and it allows you to access premium content. And you can actually use these rewards to easily tip your favorite content creators in Brave. Now, their goal is to actually help fix the web. They want to improve privacy. They want to give publishers back their fair share of the web revenue. And they want to make it easy. Now, join Brave's mission to fix the internet. You know you can trust Brave because it was co-founded by Brendan Eich and Brian Bondi. Brendan Eich was actually previously the co-founder of Mozilla Firefox and the creator of JavaScript. Brave includes options such as private window with Tor for those who are seeking even more advanced privacy and security. Now, listeners of This Week in Enterprise Tech can easily download Brave right now. Go to brave.com/twit and switch to Brave today. That's brave.com/twit. Yesterday was about big tech. Today is about us. And we thank Brave for their support of This Week in Enterprise Tech. Well, today we're actually going to start the bites with an inside look of WiSPalooza from Cheebert and friends. I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Cheebert. Cheebert.
Okay, so we had Claude Aiken, the president and CEO of the WiSPA, Wireless Internet Service Provider Association. And so I was able to do a follow-up interview. So if you want to listen to the original interview, that's episode 345. But this was done at the WiSPApalooza show, and we're going to have Claude Aiken give us an update on what's happening in the regulatory world that should be able to help wireless internet service providers. And by the way, Mo is a customer of a WISP in Texas. And, you know, WISP are probably going to be providing a lot of services for people that don't live in metropolitan areas. So let's go hear from Claude and get an update.
I'm Brian Chee, and I'm at WiSPApalooza 2019, and I have the CEO and president of WiSPA, Mr. Claude Aiken. And Claude, you were on the show not too long ago, and you gave us a few teases about some of the things that are changing in the regulatory world. Could you expound on that?
Yeah, there are a number of things that are going on in the regulatory space that are very much of interest to folks in the enterprise space and in the fixed wireless space. Probably the primary one is the advent of CBRS spectrum coming online. There's a lot of excitement around that, both from from entities ranging all the way from the largest service providers to folks who want to do it for private LTE inside factories and buildings and stadiums, to the folks who are our members, WISPs, who want to use that spectrum to provide more robust broadband coverage across the nation. This administration and this FCC has been really focused on getting a lot more spectrum out there commercially, in the millimeter wave space, in the mid-band space, and when we're likely to see a number of spectrum auctions coming down the pipeline over the course of the next few years. First is likely to be I think the FCC actually announced that later this year and early next year they're going to be auctioning off 3 different millimeter wave bands. Mid next year you'll have the priority access license auction for CBRS, and then a little bit further down the pipeline you'll see auctions for likely for C-band spectrum, 3.7 to 4.2, as well as EBS spectrum, so 2.5 gigahertz spectrum. So from the perspective of someone who's working in wireless, it's a great time to be engaged on the spectrum front. And I know there's a lot of excitement both from the operators and the manufacturers who are going to be rolling out products to fully utilize all of this spectrum.
Yeah, so this has been my first WiSPA-Palooza, but this is the 7th show total?
It is actually, it's been going on even longer than that. It's been, I think there's been 9 WiSPA-Paloozas, but this is the largest yet. I think we're estimating probably around, we won't have final numbers till the end of the show, but estimating around 2,500 attendees, both operators and vendors and service providers.
Lots of buzz. Actually, one of the big buzzes I've been hearing during the show has been white space.
Mm-hmm.
And boy, white space, being able to get through trees, that's just magic.
Yeah, that's kind of the holy grail of unlicensed low band spectrum. There's still a lot of work to do there to make it usable from a broadband perspective, both in terms of how many channels you can bond together and the terms by which you have access to those channels. Right now, the rules are very, very protective of the broadcast spectrum, kind of to the detriment of unlicensed use of that spectrum. But we've been working pretty closely with entities like Microsoft to try to make some changes there. There's new equipment that's rolling out to more robustly utilize the band. So I think it is a band that it feels like it's on the cusp of something big.
Yeah. And one of the other things I noticed is the line between big enterprise and WISP are very much blurring now. I'm hearing words that I normally haven't heard unless I've been talking enterprise. It's very exciting changes.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's interesting that Fortune 100 companies would be using the same sort of terminology as small rural broadband providers, but it actually does kind of make sense when you think about it, because if you're a big company looking to do a wireless deployments, either in the manufacturing context, you're looking to cover a factory, or even just a large office, that's kind of the service profile that you're looking at for a small WISP as well. So there are a lot of synergies between the two sectors that are not actually readily apparent when you first think about it. But once you think a little bit more about it and the different profiles there, it makes a lot of sense.
So this is the last year we're at the Rio.
That's correct.
Next year we are at...
So Caesars is building a new event space called the Forum that's going to be located behind Hyenas, the Link, and the Flamingo. And that's where we're moving WiSPA-Palooza to. It's a much larger space, so if growth continues, we're leaving ourselves room to continue to grow, and we're excited about it.
So from my point of view, talking to an enterprise audience, I'm seeing lots of crossover. I'm thinking maybe next year, what time frame do our enterprise users might want to consider attending WiSPA-Palooza next year?
It's around the mid-October time frame. We haven't announced the final dates quite yet, but if you keep clicking on the WiSPA website, we'll get that information pushed out there as soon as we can.
And that website is WiSPA.org, WISPA.org. Claude, thank you so very much. It was great to have you on the show, and we're going to put this in as a news item.
Fantastic.
Love to have the update from you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Brian. Appreciate it. So good to see you.
Well, folks, great big thank you to Claude and the WiSPA organization. We had a lot of fun, learned lots of stuff. I'm actually going to be doing some more video. I've got a couple more vendors to share with you, and you're going to start really seeing, gee, this stuff looks like enterprise gear, but it's at a WiSPA show. So anyway, we've got a lot of things to share with you, and I'm really looking forward to WiSPA next year. And if all goes well, I'm hoping to be able to share with you some of the stuff I'm going to do in Prague at the MikroTik conference. Anyway, on to the next bite. Since we're talking about ISPs, let's talk about what some of the big ISPs are doing. In this case, the headline is ISPs lied to Congress to spread confusion about encrypted DNS, according to Mozilla. Mozilla is urging Congress to reject the broadband industry's lobbying campaign against encrypted DNS in Firefox and Chrome. The internet provider's fight against this privacy feature raises questions about how they use broadband customers' web browsing data. Mozilla wrote in a letter the other day to the chairs and ranking members of 3 House of Representative committees. Mozilla also said that the internet providers have been giving inaccurate information to lawmakers and urged Congress to publicly probe ISP data collection and use policies. DNS over HTTPS helps keep eavesdroppers from seeing what DNS lookups your browser is making. This can make it more difficult for ISPs or other third parties to monitor what websites you visit. Quote, unsurprisingly, our work, this is Mozilla, on DNS over HTTPS has prompted a campaign to forestall these privacy and security protections, as demonstrated by a recent letter to Congress from major telecommunications associations. That letter contained a number of factual inaccuracy, according to Mozilla's Senior Director of Trust and Security, Marshall Irwin. So this part of Irwin's letter referred to an Ars article in which we examined the ISP's claims, which centered largely around Google's plans for Chrome. The broadband industry claimed that Google plans to automatically switch Chrome users to its own DNS service, but that's not what Google says it's doing. Google publicly announced plans to check if the user's current DNS provider is among a list of DNS over HTTPS compatible providers and upgrade to the equivalent DOH service, DNS over HTTPS service, from the same provider. If the user's selected DNS service is not on that list, Chrome would make no changes for that user. So lots of interesting things that they're talking about. The bottom line, when you read the article, is that there's an awful lot of interesting things that the ISP has been doing to try and sell you more things. You know, things like if you've been browsing to certain types of topics, all of a sudden when you go on to, say, Amazon or some other shopping site, gee, I didn't know I was looking for that in that particular shopping application. So it's been pretty clear that the ISPs are selling your browsing history, your DNS history, to the providers and feeding it to them so that they can give you, hit you with targeted ads and things like that. So I'm going to throw this at Lou, obviously, and say, I like my privacy. Let's quote the Avenue Q. The internet was made for porn, right? And the reality is, what I browse in the privacy of my own home should be private, right? What do you think, Lou?
Yeah, I think so. I think, it's interesting. There's something kind of came up this week, and we were talking about the fact that AT&T and Comcast have these Xfinity Wi-Fi or things that are happening around, where you can connect anywhere, in the city or whatnot to these Wi-Fis. You can use your account that you have with them as an internet company. And we started noticing things like traffic to like Netflix or particular websites. And this goes back to net neutrality is, they start to regulate, latency and speed and connection and over time to these other properties because they can do that. And then you go to the DNS side, which is something that's, kind of a weak point in today's internet. I mean, it's one of those things, like Let's Encrypt's really helped the world when it comes to the HTTP protocol and just making sure that traffic across, to particular sites are encrypted. But now the DNS lookup is the other side, is like being able to resolve your domain name is kind of like a weak point in today's kind of protocols and the way things flow through the internet. And like you said, a lot of places they're taking advantage of this, whether it be governments, UK is trying to use this to police what people can search. There's lots of organizations out there that use this to also do very similar things, or even block the things that you can surf. And so that's where the promise of DNS over HTTPS was supposed to come through and really help, right? I mean, it was supposed to prevent ISPs from doing these types of things. And I really think that your data, especially if you don't mean to give it up, is your data. Like if you offer it as, okay, yeah, I'm willing to offer a little piece of data in order to get some advantage, or I'm willing to provide some service to somebody, or some information to somebody for a service, then you kind of willingly do that. But when you're surfing something and you're just kind of like you said, just kind of, doing your thing, reading the news, going through something that you're interested in, like photos or whatnot, you should be able to do that without worrying that somebody's tracking you or somebody's collecting an aggregated data about your personality and your persona. And I think that's where this where DNS falls short. And I think it's time that browsers and ISPs get together, and operating systems get together, and they start implementing this to really make a free internet a really private internet, and hopefully they start doing that soon.
Because the big ISPs aren't on the show today to defend themselves, I'm going to talk a little bit about the flip side of that coin. Everybody knows that there's things, cell phones are, supported. There's no way you can afford to give away $1,000 cell phone if the company wasn't making money, right? Well, the idea that a lot of these ISPs are trying to fight back with is saying, hey, why are you denying us a revenue stream? We're trying to drive the cost of this internet down. And one of the things we need to be able to do is we need to be able to go and have revenue streams. Now, I'm saying this with tongue in cheek only because I'm not sure I really believe this, but this is what a lot of these ISPs are saying is, don't deny us those revenue streams, because that's what we're using to fund expansion of our networks, providing new services, blah, 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 blah. I'm sorry. I'm having a real tough time saying this. I'm sorry. Considering how much money the federal government has been giving these large ISPs to expand their network, and they're not really expanding the network. And we've done all kinds of news stories about how they haven't fulfilled their promises. Maybe what we need to do is we need to go and say, hey, I'm sorry, this revenue stream is impinging on our privacy. You guys need to go and actually do something about it. Maybe expand your services. Being with a wireless internet service provider, I'm actually hitting a whole bunch of whole buildings that the big ISPs don't want to touch because there's not enough people in the building. So I'm going to have that as a revenue stream. So DNS over HTTPS, I think it's a great move. I think privacy is something that has been totally forgotten. We've had a great snide remark from Retcon5 in the chat room. It says, quote, "There is no expectation of privacy on the internet," and he has an arrow pointing from ISPs in 2019. That kind of thing gives me a little bit of a pause. So I'll let you make your minds up. I did my duty. I talked about the flip side of that coin, but I think DNS over HTTPS does solve some problems with privacy, and I'd like to see it happen. More power to them. Maybe I'm going to switch to Mozilla just because I want to go and show support to them. Anyway, I think it's time to hand the steering wheel back to Lou, and let's go talk about another sponsor of This Week in Enterprise Tech.
Thanks, Cheebird. And that is Beacon by EchoSec. Now, sometimes discovering things about your network and infrastructure requires you to use more than the data you have, right? Well, if you want to stay ahead of the game, you want to be proactive rather than reactive, you need the data you don't have. Now, that's where EchoSec has been the discovery tool for all social media, forums, and news. But they just now released their newest product called Beacon. Now, this product will actually protect your information with dark web intelligence. Now, Beacon helps you discover threats, learn about the attackers and their motives, and prevent future attacks. It's super cool stuff. Now, that lets you actually be on the offense rather than on the defense right out of the gate. Within minutes, Beacon will show you all this information. Check it out. Leaked personal identifiable information. Now, once a leaked email address can actually quickly lead to a person's phone number, home address, information about their family, and even their favorite movies. You don't want that to happen, so you want to know when that information is leaked. They can provide that. In fact, they also can establish dark web information like fraudulent credit cards, guides to how to hack specific companies, and more. In fact, they also have information about large-scale data breaches. Detecting these issues early means you can inform your clients, your users, your people, and stakeholders before they hear it on the news, right? Now, they also have information about cloud service vulnerabilities. Now, if your company uses any cloud services, be the first to know, and those services have weak spots and how they can affect you and your organization. Now, Beacon allows anyone on your team to scan for threats quickly across Onion sites, Pay sites, and message boards without the need for Tor browsers to do it. In fact, it's sophisticated, but really simple to use. It parses the data before delivering it to you, so you and your team are not at risk, right? You don't want to be exposed. You don't want to be implicated. This is the way to do it through Beacon. Now, global organizations trust Beacon to discover critical online threats and better protect their information and their people. Finding leaked data, information breaches, and other vulnerabilities early is super imperative for the safety and security of communities, individuals, brands, and organizations. Don't be left in the dark. Discover key data from hidden sources before they impact your organization. Book a demo today at Beacon and claim a 10% discount by visiting ecosec.net/enterprise. That's ecosec.net/enterprise to receive your exclusive 10% discount. And we thank EchoSec for their support of This Week in Enterprise Tech. Well, folks, that brings it to my favorite part of the show. We get to bring in a guest to drop some knowledge on the Twilight. Today we have Chief Product Officer at Qualys, Sumedh Thakar. Sumedh, thank you so much for being here.
Hey, good to see you guys.
Now, our audience loves to hear origin stories. Can you maybe take us through your journey through tech and what kind of brought you to Qualys?
Yeah, it's a fun story. I first moved to the US and they sent me to Minneapolis, which is not a great place to go for somebody who's never been in snow. And so I ended up moving to the Silicon Valley to find something warmer. And so I've been with Qualys for a long time, about 16 years. And I initially started off working at a couple companies. I was very fascinated with the notion that you can provide services from servers that you are hosting on the internet, which later came out to be SaaS and cloud and all of that. But the notion that you don't really need to own software to do your taxes, to do your accounting, and similarly to do security was quite fascinating to offer these kind of things as a service. Which was quite new, and today, of course, we expect that, and that's extended to everything from security to just even cars. Today you use Uber. You don't buy a car; you just use it as you need. So that notion of services, and so I've been working in the security and tech sector, trying to kind of work on new innovative technologies to make us more secure for a while now.
Fantastic. Now, like you said, Qualys has been around for a while. In fact, it does a ton of things. We want to hear about all of them. But I think first we want to get into, we know that there's a common problem that organizations are having, right? They have this challenge where they're trying to digitally transform and scale out their services. They want to bring their own devices. They have a bunch of management for assets. What are some of the challenges that you're seeing here, and how are organizations trying to solve those challenges today?
So security is really what everybody's trying to do, right? Like you want to be secure, you don't want to get compromised. That's the bottom line. And what's really the number one thing for security is knowing what you have, right? You cannot secure something that you don't even know that you have. I mean, asset inventory is as fundamental to security as water is to life. If you don't know what you have and you're not looking at it, then that's the thing that's going to be used to compromise. And so being able to do a discovery of everything that you have and inventory is extremely critical today, especially in today's changing world with cloud and mobility and containerization. So it's not like in the past, maybe 15 years ago, when you had your 50 servers in a data center and you knew exactly what you have and that was it. Today you are in a world where there's laptops, handheld devices, virtual machines, cloud, multi-cloud containers, Lambda functions, all kinds of stuff. And so that becomes your enterprise. And what used to be your perimeter in the past now has moved, you have a company-owned laptop that is connected to the Wi-Fi network at Starbucks. And now that one laptop is really your perimeter, because that can be used to compromise and get into your enterprise.
Right. Now, you kind of brought out a good point. I mean, obviously, there's that buzzword of being hyper-connected in this world where obviously a lot of things are connected to your network, and you need to know, hey, if somebody new comes onto my network and have some new service or something, I need to know about it. How do I do that? I mean, what's the way that organizations are handling this today?
Well, people are not really doing a good job at that because it's complicated,
Sure.
right? That's the reality, because there is no one magic solution, no magic bullet that you can say, okay, I do this and that's it. I know everything on my network. It's really, you have, given how hybrid that infrastructure is, given that you have things that are all over the place in cloud providers and your on-prem devices, you really need a way, and organizations are really looking to find a way that they can really get a comprehensive inventory. And that cannot be done with one single solution that can be implemented. So today, the way you do that is really a combination of just being able to collect telemetry data across your environment continuously and assess it to see if you're seeing new devices. So sometimes it's going to be a passive sniffing of your network. Other times it's going to be using an agent to keep an eye on what software is being installed on your devices. Sometimes it's going to be an active sweep of your network. Other times you're going to be using APIs with cloud providers or container sidecar containers in your container environment to just keep track of what's going on, and also being able to track everything that's not on your network right now, but it's out there somewhere because it's a laptop or it's a handheld device. And you extend that even more to, as an organization, you're using SaaS services. So now we're not just talking about devices that you have on the network. You're talking about services that you're using from our other providers, where you don't even have a computer that you host, right? They are doing all the work. So how do you keep track of all of that? So today, organizations really struggle with this in a big way, because you really need to have a platform where you can bring all this information about various devices that are communicating. You have to bring your laptops, your containers, also your SaaS services, and just kind of try to give a global perspective. And nobody really has a good solution around that, because you just really need to build a platform for that.
Makes sense. I mean, we see a lot of services out there today that you have to kind of combine these services. Like you said, you're getting telemetry from devices, you're getting data streams from devices, and services and containers. And so there's a lot of services that use that, aggregate that, produce some models, and then obviously alert and kind of aggregate that out. But again, you have to combine a lot of services together to do that. So, right. And you have to pay different streams of services for those types of things. So let me ask, what is Qualys doing here? How are you going to help?
Yeah, so one of the things that we really decided to do around Black Hat this year was that we realized that given how fundamental asset discovery is to security, we decided to make that service free for everybody. Essentially, any organization can go and sign up and get the Qualys inventory and discovery solution, because we feel like that's the first step to looking at security and making organizations secure. So we spent a good amount of time last couple of years building a very focused platform that brings all these various streams from different hybrid infrastructure, get that telemetry information correlated in the backend, look at it specifically for new devices or changes in devices that are popping up, and kind of create this platform that provides an organization where they log in, and in one interface they can see how many laptops do I have, how many handheld devices do I have, how many on-prem devices do I have, but also extend that out to how many cloud environments do I have, how many container sensors do I have, and then also look at the software inventory. Too many times people focus only on agent-based and agentless, and they only focus on the hardware, but the software inventory is another important thing. We talked a little bit about Mozilla and DNS, and how do you know which machines in your environment are running the secure Mozilla version, because that's what you want to do. So by building that platform and creating that capability and then giving it for free for any organization, we're really kind of creating sort of a community wave for people to start to at least get to know what they have on their environment. And when I say environment, it's a pretty broad term these days, by bringing all of that together.
Right. I think you brought that up. I mean, environments are kind of a broad thing. And the interesting thing here is it sounds like you have a lot of data points that you're collecting. So the service is free or the software is free. I guess that's the question is, what is this? What is it, a software? Is it a service? How easy is it to install? Like, what do you have to do to actually start collecting this data, especially from all those different data points?
Yeah, so the platform really collects a huge amount of information. So today across the board, we have, we use a lot of new technology, Elasticsearch, Kafka, Cassandra. I think we have like 3 trillion data points we index in our Elasticsearch clusters today from all the telemetry data we collect across all the various customer environments, where we have a large number of customers that are using that solution. But then, with that, we're really able to provide this capability where it's a SaaS service, right? So you sign up, you don't need to install any software console or configure any virtual machines or something like that in terms of being able to get it going. It's all cloud-based. So you sign up, you go to qualys.com/asset inventory, sign up. Immediately you can download a very lightweight agent to start getting an inventory of your devices. You can extend that further to get telemetry information on your network by using a passive probe that you can put on the mirror port of your router or a switch. You can extend that to many other forms, but really it's a very simple go here, sign up, and get the agent downloaded and get started type of a model, because it's a software as a service, so very easy to get going.
This is fantastic. So let's say you download this thing, you start getting the data input, the agent's there, it's collecting all the data, and you start to see things like, these are all the data. This is all the the nodes that I have, the endpoints. Here's all the devices. What's next? Like, what do I need to do next? Do I need to understand what devices are secure, how they're not secure, whether they're compliant or not? What do I do next?
So exactly what your end goal at the end of the day is to become secure, become compliant. And so once you get to see and start seeing all of this information, so first of all, what we did is we did not do this as a trial, right? We did not say this is a limited 14-day trial. This is a year-long free service. You can use it even if you don't sign up to any additional Qualys services as a community initiative. Now, once you see that information, you start to see all of these devices, you need to categorize them, right? Which ones are the important ones? Which ones are your servers? Which ones are, maybe handheld devices that not that important right now? And so you have ways that you can categorize, normalize this information, and then you can start to put them in different buckets to say, well, these 10 devices make up my payment application. This is very critical for me. And so then on those devices, you start to look at what's the vulnerability posture? How many critical exploitable issues do I have on that machine? Have I misconfigured that particular device? So on and so forth. So from that point on, you can start to use additional capabilities from Qualys to really look at the security and compliance of these devices, depending on which devices are important to you and if they're important to you. There might be a bunch of devices, could be a handheld toothbrush that's Wi-Fi connected these days. Pretty much everything is Wi-Fi connected. Maybe you don't care about that, or maybe you do. Today I read something about the Ring doorbell that you use in your house had a vulnerability that was exposing the Wi-Fi password in clear text. So these days, even those kind of devices are important, but today most organizations in terms of maturity really start off by looking at your servers and looking at the crown jewels that kind of host your critical infrastructure.
Right, makes sense. Well, when we come back, I do want to bring Chee back in because he has some really good questions. Plus, we have some great questions from the chat rooms about data privacy. So we'll get to all that when we come back. But before we do, we have to think of another great sponsor of This Week in Enterprise Tech, and that's RingCentral. Now, I can tell you, handling telecommunications in any organization is not easy. It can really get in the way of the productivity of that organization. I've been in the industry for over 20 years, and I can tell you, it can be really crutch for an organization. Now, that's where RingCentral can step in and streamline this for your organization so you can focus on your business and what you want to do with your business, be more productive. Now, with RingCentral, you can get a total customer and employee engagement solution, including collaborative communications, which is a full cloud PBX, flexible and powerful cloud voice on desktop or mobile with advanced administration and analytics. In fact, you also get team messaging, collaborate anytime, anywhere on any one of your devices with video, file sharing, tasks, and more. Also video meetings. You can host up to 200 participants with clear, reliable voice and HD video across devices. You can also have inbound contact center where it's intelligent inbound call routing, CRM integrations, and workforce optimizations to help you drive efficiency. Also, you get digital engagement, a single platform to actually connect with customers wherever they are online, and you get outbound and blended engagement for current and future customers, and turn any agent into an outbound blended powerhouse. Now, it's one cloud communication platform to rule them all. They have it's open because you can extend and customize with APIs and out-of-the-box integrations. It's global because it's affordable PBX, but it's also in 40-plus countries, phone numbers in 100-plus countries, and it services in 10 languages or 10-plus languages. In fact, they also give you analytics about what's going on. They have intuitive dashboards and reports and notifications to actually drive better outcomes and more productivity for you and your organization. And guess what? They also use AI. They leverage the RingCentral data with powerful AI workflows to drive better decisions across the organization. Now, RingCentral is the complete communication solution from one vendor, and it starts as low as $19.99 and saves you money and cutting your phone costs by at least 30%. They also have customer service 24/7 via telephone, live chat, and email whenever you need them. For me, I set it up mine pretty quickly. I gave them my phone number I wanted to use for forwarding, set up the app, and bam, I was done. I was ready to go. I was all integrated with their platform, and I went to be able to collaborate and communicate with everybody without worrying about the details. Now, you want to use RingCentral for all your communication needs. Sign up for a free demo or request a quote today at ringcentral.com/enterprise. That's central.com/enterprise. And we thank RingCentral for their support of This Week in Enterprise Tech. Well, folks, I do want to get back to the stream of things here. We've been talking about, asset management and understanding security and privacy of your devices. But Chee, I want to bring you in because you've managed networks before. You understand that being able to bring your own devices and handling these assets is difficult, right?
Yeah, and we're always going to have some legacy something or another. And so my big question for Sumedh is, you have some APIs there. Once we have this asset database, can we integrate existing, say, trouble ticket systems in? What do we do with our legacy apps? Can we leverage that database? So that's the first part of the question. And then the second part of the question comes from Retcon5 in the chat room, and he's asking, that's an interesting pool of data that you're collecting. How private is it?
Yeah, so that's so today, if you look at the data that we collect, it's enterprise data, right? So this is enterprises collecting information about the users that they have. More than the users, it's really about the devices. So today, what we focus on is knowing enterprises bringing different devices that connect to their network. And today, every enterprise, they look at the security, they look at what devices on the network. So today, the focus here is mainly around what the device is, what is installed, not really looking into activity that what the user is doing and all of that. That comes in a lot more advanced type of a security mechanism that when you look at APT and things like that, where some of the various software that's out there might be looking into customer information. We at Qualys don't really do that because we focus really on the devices that you're bringing. So most organizations will take the stance that if you are bringing a device and connecting it to the company corporate network, or if it is a company-owned device, then the company needs to do what it needs to do in terms of focusing on making sure that it's security. It's really, there's many other solutions that are available. If companies really want to look at what the user is doing, that's really not the focus that we have. And to address the earlier question that you had around legacy devices, so that's really the key part here, is that there is no single type of device that an organization uses that makes it easy. You have a whole bunch of different devices that are in your environment. Some of them are old, some of them are end of life that you need to look at. And being a SaaS provider, this is the thing that we learned very early on, that unlike on-prem solutions where there is an expectation that the database is directly accessible to us, it's our data. Even for SaaS providers, the data at the end is the customer data. And the first thing we really learned back then was that we need to provide access to this data completely transparently to the owners of the data, so that the users can essentially pull down whatever information that they want or integrate with whatever system that they have, and which is one of the big reasons why we do integrate very heavily with many, many different solutions. But especially when we talk about asset inventory, we actually do integrate quite well with ServiceNow and other CMDBs, where this information needs to be pulled in because this is the live discovered information, and then you need to correlate that information with procurement systems and license management systems, as well as ownership of those devices, so that better decisions can be made around the security and compliance of these devices.
So I want to go just a shade further. When we start talking about the discovery mechanisms, nowadays we're all in agreement, I think. The concept of perimeter security is dead. So there's going to be multiple zones. Do we have to pay more for the discovery mechanisms when we start putting these pieces of software or hardware or a little of both in each of the zones, or is it just one price?
Yeah, so it's for the discovery part and the inventory part, it's one price, which is zero, which is free. So even though if you want to use an agent to look at what's on the device, if you want to use a virtual appliance to look for what's on your environment, or connect a virtual appliance to anything that you have as a network equipment to see what traffic you have to identify devices, or whether you want to use cloud-based connectors to get information from your cloud accounts, Qualys does not charge for any of that. So from an inventory discovery perspective, this is all free. It's one price. You can extend it to whatever you want. Now, of course, if for whatever reason you need to get some hardware devices from Qualys or something like that, that's kind of the things that we will charge for. And then after the discovery part, if the customers do wish to focus on security and compliance, then there are additional modules that we sell to the customers, being able to get that view of security and compliance as well.
So one question I had, I want to kind of shift a little bit here, because again, Qualys does so many things that there's some really interesting things coming up now in the market where people are starting to ship new services and deploy new services out there. And you have this concept that you like to talk about called transparent orchestration. Can you maybe take us through what that is as we kind of put more devices on the network and deploy new services?
Yeah, that's a very interesting area, because what happens is that, when you had a static network, so networks are becoming dynamic. When you had a static network and you had a clear handle of this is my network and here's the 5 new laptops or 5 new devices I'm bringing on, it was much more straightforward. Today, DevOps is taking over a lot of the development, as you guys know. So teams are going out and writing code and just pushing that code out to production at a very fast pace. So security has always kind of come after the fact, right? It's like, do your thing, ship that code over, throw it over the fence, and then security team will figure out how to find out what assets you have and how to secure those assets and things like that. Now what happens is that the rate at which we are developing and putting out new services and new products and new devices, really the only way to kind of make sure that you have a full handle on everything that you have is to start from the beginning of that particular service, the beginning of that particular device. So ensuring that whatever security or inventory or compliance agent or software that you need to have is already imprinted into the base image. We use DevOps to make sure that you transparently orchestrate when the particular agent or something like that into the master image, so that every time you have new instances spun up, you don't have to figure out processes that then go after the fact to find out what you have deployed. So that ability to transparently make sure that security is built in already as soon as that new device comes to life is that notion of transparent orchestration, where instead of trying to figure out after the fact what has happened, what's on it, and then trying to kind of force a security tool onto that device, if you work with the IT teams and the development teams upfront and get that already embedded, we have a lot of customers who do that. That really makes for much more frictionless security, and that's kind of what we call as the transparent orchestration.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I think that, like you said, I think chat room Retcon5 said it great. He says, DevOps are like a bunch of wild hyenas messing up your network. And I think that that's true. I think a lot of times these things want to move so fast, so agile. They want to deploy new software so quickly that they kind of don't really always check for things like compliance and security. So this concept of transparency really kind of is close to home for me, because I can tell you that it's very hard, because it's very hard to kind of keep up on things. Now, for organizations that want to get started with that, they want to understand how they can kind of, start understanding and having transparent orchestrations. What do they do first? How do they get started?
Yeah, I think first, to know what you have to start with that inventory, right? And that's really why that inventory is so critical, because you need to know what is on your environment. You need to see what are all the machines, what software am I running on it, what builds am I pushing out, what kind of handheld devices do I have. Once you have that good idea of what's on your network, then from that point on, you need to figure out, based on these devices, what processes or technical processes, or systems can I put in place that will continuously monitor. So today it's a continuous game. It's not about assessment, right? Many years ago, you would be doing an assessment of your environment once a quarter, once a month, and that was good enough. Today, you need to have real-time visibility. And so kind of getting that transparently orchestrated into your laptop images, into your AMIs, into your Docker images, is the place that you start to really say, okay, this is how I'm going to orchestrate, making sure that I get that visibility, get that going. And then that's going to be the part that you do when you're pushing out your own devices and services. And then you need to separately have some sort of a monitoring capability, which will look at what's on the network and say, do I see devices that don't have my trademark software on it or my security software on it that can identify and make sure that that device is secure? Then you now have a delta. You have a gap of, okay, now I'm seeing devices, and those can be malicious, or those could be mistakes that people have made, but not malicious. And then from there on, you can start to really focus on how to do that orchestration. Really, so at the end of the day, look, the only way you can make good decisions transparently and automatically is if you have enough information coming from different sources that is high quality and reliable. And today, if you look at home security, right, you have multiple sensors that are put across your entire house, and then they all connect to a particular cloud-based console. And you have heat sensors and door sensors and all kinds of different things that then start to collect the images and then send those images out and correlate with each other. So one of my friends, Anand, he actually put together a home network for security with the doorbell and different sensors and video cameras. But then all of that would go off when his cat would jump through the living room. And so there were a lot of false alerts. And so then the question is, well, how do you mitigate that? The good thing is when you have this transparent orchestration where you can actually feed that system the image of your cat, so that that system can now already know that, yes, somebody moved And now I can verify there's a heat signature, but then I can verify that from a second source, which is the camera, and then correlate that with the image of the cat. And now if it's the cat, then you're good. If it's your neighbor's cat, maybe you can shoot it or whatever. So that's really the way that home security is evolving. And so from a enterprise security, it's the same thing. You want to do this sort of a transparent orchestration of not only knowing what you have, but actually being able to take action with automation and transparency. That's where you need to collect a lot of information, telemetry, bring it into one place, analyze it, correlate it, and then you will be able to do better decisions on security. You cannot just look at it from one source.
Fantastic. Sumedh, thank you so much for being here. We're running a little low on time. We do want to give you a chance to tell the folks at home where they can go to find more about Qualys. Where can they go to get started and take advantage of it? Where can organizations start?
Yep, like I said earlier, anybody who wants to start off by looking at what they have on their environment and discovering everything that they have, you can go to qualys.com/asset inventory, and from there on, start to get a visibility, look at what you have, get an inventory, and then we give plenty of different options for customers to really focus on either security or compliance of those devices. So depending on what your enterprise needs, what your organization needs, we have many different capabilities available. And the best part is that it is all available as a single platform, single agent, single sensor solution. So it's very easy to enable and add additional capabilities and additional components based on what you need, what your auditors need, and based on what your enterprise needs today.
Well, folks, you've done it again. You sat through another hour of the best dang enterprise podcasts in the universe, according to 9 out of 10, Bring Your Own Devices. But I also want to thank everyone who makes the show possible, especially to my co-host in crime for today. We were the dynamic duo, our very own geek in paradise, Mr. Brian Chee. Cheebert, where can the folks find you, all of your work, and how can they get in touch with you?
On Twitter, I am ADVNETLAB, Advanced Net Lab. Or feel free to drop me an email at cheebert@twit.tv. But better yet, why don't you hit twyet@twit.tv, and that'll hit all the hosts. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to hear show suggestions. We've had requests to go into more beginner stuff. We've had requests to go more deep dive into the actual network troubleshooting and network guts, shall we say. We're going to try real hard. Anyway, looking forward to hearing from you and hearing your suggestions. And who knows, maybe you'll get a big winner like Redcon 5, who happens to like the title, Wild Hyenas Taking Inventory. What do you say?
Thanks, Cheebert. Well, folks, we have to thank you as well. You're the person who drops in each and every week to watch and to listen to get your enterprise goodness. We want to make it easy for you to watch and listen and catch up on your enterprise news. You go out right now to our show page, twit.tv/Twyet. There you'll find all the amazing back episodes, plus all the show notes, co-host information, guest information, and the links to the stories we do during the show. But more importantly, next to the videos there, you'll get those really helpful and subscribe and download links. You want to support the show? Subscribe. Get your audio version, your video version, your HD video version of your choice. Listen on any one of your devices. Use any one of your favorite podcasting apps that you want to use. Go ahead. It's really the best way to stay on top of your enterprise and IT news. Now, remember, after you subscribe, you want to share the show with your friends, your family, your coworkers. We love doing the show. And if we get more subscribers, we can continue doing it, right? Well, remember, also, we do the show live each and every week on Fridays, 1:30 p.m. Pacific. Live.twit.tv. And if you want to come home and see how the show is run, the behind the scenes, jump on the live stream to do so. Now, if you're going to jump on live, you might as well jump into the chat room as well. We have some great characters, like you were saying. We've got some great actually conversations and questions from them each and every week. So irc.twit.tv to jump in and join the Twyet Riot. But if you can't be live, you can't jump on live, obviously we want you to go and subscribe, listen, and download those videos. But also, if you want to join the conversation as well, we have a great community, great new website, great community, twit.community. Check that out. All of our hosts are on there. They have all of our Twyet Riots on there. you can come and really just join the conversation. You can be part of it. You can talk about the current episodes, the next episodes. You can ask us questions. We just really love being able to be able to interact with the community and all of our audience, both online and offline. Also, don't forget, you can follow me, twitter.com/LouMM. You can get all what I do all during my normal daily work week at Microsoft there as well. Also, don't forget, there's Ignite conferences going on right now. Go check out all the Ignite information and all the stuff that's happening. Of course, always check out dev.office.com for all the latest and greatest ways to alter and make your office more productive for you and your organization. I also want to thank everyone who makes this show possible, especially to Leo and Lisa. They continue to support us each and every week to do This Week in Enterprise Tech, and we couldn't do it without them. I also want to thank all the engineers at Twit. And of course, I also want to thank, again, Mr. Brian Chee. Cheebert, he's not only our co-host, but he's also our tireless producer. He does all the bookings, the plannings for the show, and we really couldn't do this show without him. Of course, before we sign out, we want to thank our TDs for today. Both Victor and Jeff, you guys are there, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, we are.
Hey, guys. Well, you know the tradition. What was today's topic of today's show? What was the major topic, I guess we could say?
Well, speaking of like hyenas messing up your network, that's all I heard today because I've been trying to mess with this thing with this like red light, but it's not activating it and stuff. So
it's kind of like the red cloak. You're trying to hold it up to it.
Yeah. It's not working. I don't know.
I would say super close, Victor, but maybe next time. I would say the major topic was DOH, don't believe in your ISPs, but really close. So close, maybe next time.
All right.
All right.
Maybe don't believe in being able to activate a thing with the red light, but
Very nice. Well, folks, until next time, I'm Louis Maresca, just reminding you, if you want to know what's going on in the enterprise, just keep quiet.